Imagine you close this deal, right? And you come home to your wife and kids and you say, honey, I won the console wars.
All like PlayStation really had going for them at this point was COD, and Xbox was just like, yeah, I'm gonna buy that.
Can I buy that?
Well, I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah, I think I'll just buy it. Let me just rattle off some of the things they own. Overwatch, Diablo, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Candy Crush, StarCraft. When they bought Bethesda, they own Dishonored, Wolfenstein, The Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom, Starfield, The Evil Within, Prey. They own Halo.
Wipe them out, all of them.
They also own Minecraft. Let's not forget that. They own Minecraft as well. Thinking about what this truly means for the industry at large, for console gaming, for gaming in general. The console war's been going on for, since the beginning of time, right? Since consoles dawned and man walked the earth, they've been competing in this space in the gaming industry. For a long time, it was debatable, right? It was a toss-up always. It was like, man, depending on who you ask, Nintendo's killing it. And depending on the year, I should say as well, Nintendo's killing it, or Sony's killing it, or Xbox is killing it, or they're all killing it if you're really lucky. If you're in some really amazing pockets of the gaming industry at certain times, they were all killing it and it was great for everybody. What we're, I think, verging on with this acquisition of Activision and Blizzard is like, there is not a console war anymore. It is Microsoft, and they own almost everything valuable in the space. Because you also think console war, it hasn't been about consoles for a few years now solely. Like, PC market has grown exponentially over the last few years, and it's not just about the consoles, it's about that market too. But you think, like, no one's gaming on a Mac, no one's making software for Linux, so Microsoft Windows is pretty much the only operating system for gaming, and Microsoft owns that. So they pretty much have the entire PC gaming market, in terms of hardware. So what you're really looking at is Xbox and PC, and then you have Sony and Nintendo.
And with games that Microsoft owns, you can rest assured that even if they do not support full crossplay, they will support crossplay in the future between PC and Xbox.
Right.
That's pretty much going to be like a standardized thing in future iterations of game titles, I think. Now, I was having this conversation with my friend yesterday when we saw the news about the acquisition, and he was saying about how it was bad that they acquired Activision because it just adds to the monopoly that Microsoft holds over the gaming industry.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, that might sound bad, but then when you think about the business practices of Activision, maybe it's good that another company acquired them.
I mean,
because it can't really get worse than what Activision's been doing.
It's not even just business practices. It's also what's been going on in company culture and legality.
Well, that's probably
and
why this happened,
too.
Right?
I think it's a big reason why. I mean, because you think Blizzard and Activision both each on their own had their own individual scandals about their internal affairs at each company, completely independent of one another. Blizzard hasn't been favorable in the news cycle in the last 3 years.
Right.
Before it was the China, the Blitzchung silencing because he was advocating for Hong Kong, and that looked bad on Blizzard, and now it's the sexual assault allegations and the shitty workplace culture for women. Same on the Activision side. Like, there's no good PR coming out for these companies in recent time, and I think that definitely was a contributing factor. And I think it also it gave Microsoft some bargaining power to say, well, let's bring that price down a little bit since you guys are in hot water. We'll take this off your hands a little bit. But I think that this acquisition, what's interesting that I found out today is that Activision Blizzard wanted to sell very badly.
Well, I can only imagine, right? I mean, when you're talking, you just mentioned the allegations and the difficulties that their business was happening. I mean, I don't know if if you were like following the stock, but their like stock has been down pretty bad since the release of Vanguard. I think they're down like almost 30%.
Right.
I mean, it was probably a situation where between legal issues and pressure from their investors, I imagine the board at Activision was probably like, hey, Microsoft, like, you need to take this off our hands, or we are going to 1929 Wall Street venture capital investor ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's really the only way I'm gonna say that. But
yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Since Activision, like, if you look at Activision Blizzard, you're absolutely right that their stock, really, it does take a nosedive right after Vanguard is released. And now after this acquisition, like just as of today, the stock jumps to the highest it's been since around July of last year, which is interesting, you know. So I think a lot of people, myself included, I look at this acquisition and I go, look, seeing Phil Spencer's track record over at Microsoft and how he's really run things since he took over, and how much he's cleaned house since he took over at Microsoft, I think that the intent here hopefully is to clean house at Activision Blizzard, get all that shit straight, get them back on track, you know, improve management there, improve those companies and the cultures over there, which is a slow process. Obviously, it's going to take time, but like I think that Xbox is going to look at this and say, well, there's shit that we need to fix. They have a market cap of 63.99 billion. You know, I don't think these are companies operating in the red. Yeah, quarterly financials, September 2021, revenue $2 billion, net income $639 million, net profit margin 30%. All right, these are not like fucking failing companies. These are companies with the largest, arguably the largest franchises in gaming. World of Warcraft, the biggest MMO. Call of Duty, the biggest first-person shooter. Diablo, the biggest dungeon crawler. Overwatch was at one point
yes,
at something noteworthy, is not as much anymore. StarCraft, the biggest RTS. Candy Crush, the biggest mobile game. You know what I mean? Like, in one fell swoop, scooping all of these games up, all of these amazing developers like Treyarch, like Raven, like Infinity Ward, you know, all these amazing developers, Blizzard included, obviously. It's an insane move. And it's not like these things are dying. It's not like these, you know, World of Warcraft's been on the ropes for a while. Don't get me wrong. You know, you talk to a lot of people who are involved with World of Warcraft, they'll tell you, like, the game's been not as good as it used to be for a while. It's been on a decline for a while. StarCraft as well, like, haven't seen a sequel out of that franchise in a very long time. Diablo just came out with Diablo 2 Remastered. Overwatch hasn't been good in a minute. Call of Duty, Vanguard's shitty, but Warzone remains a steady cash cow for the franchise, kind of independent of however the newest installation does. It looks really good, right? At face value, you have these cards up that in this infographic that's like, look at all the things they own now. It's Diablo, COD, World of Warcraft. But then you really think about it and you're like, well, a lot of these games haven't been good or have not had sequels in like 7 years or longer.
Right.
You know?
And that's one thing that I'm kind of interested to see is obviously this is a business move for Microsoft, but I wonder how involved they intend to be creatively. If we're going to see changes to the business model of games like Call of Duty in the future, what they're going to do with these franchises, if they're going to try and finally create sequels to some of these games, and
right,
and how they're going to restructure these companies or try to make them shift their goals and what they aim to achieve with the games that they're creating. I'm really interested to see how creatively involved Microsoft gets, or if they kind of do what they did, you know, with the first few iterations, at least, of Bungie's games, where, you know, that you kind of just gave them the reins for Halo and just let them make their game.
I've heard a lot of people use the same example. Xbox acquired Rare Studios many years ago, and they have yet to, they ended up relegating Rare to making like fucking Kinect games and shit. Like, just like, this is a really, really esteemed company. They made a lot of really classic, amazing games, and a lot of people point to that acquisition as like a indication that it's not always good to get picked up by Xbox, and that sometimes you're gonna end up getting Rare being probably a company that like hadn't been doing super well, which is why they got acquired in the first place. It's usually how it goes. Each developer is only as good as the talent that it has working there, right? So it's like, if all the amazing people at Rare had left the company who made GoldenEye 10 years ago, like, what do you expect to happen when it gets acquired by Microsoft? Like, who's going to keep making the great games? Why would Microsoft spend a bunch of money to let Rare make games that aren't going to do good, like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts? They're going to get relegated to working on like shitty projects to check boxes, at a certain point. And that's just how the business goes, unfortunately. It's a super case by case basis, right? And you look at a company like Blizzard it's like, you can't compare Rare to Blizzard or Activision, or Infinity Ward or Treyarch or Raven, like, because the difference is that at the time of acquisition, those other companies that they just acquired have IP that is doing extremely financially well and is still in the current conversation in gaming. They're not just picking up a failing company that doesn't have a lot going on already. There's been examples of Microsoft acquiring studios and kind of not doing a lot with them and not letting them have their opportunities to make new stuff as much as people would want, maybe. But that's business. That's the business, and it's a really case-by-case basis thing. I think if the talent is there, I think Microsoft is smart enough to utilize it. Like, I'm shocked Gears of War 5 came out. Like, I'm shocked. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I'm surprised got made from Microsoft, that it's giving these companies a chance. I think Obsidian just made Outer Worlds, if I'm not mistaken. I know some people who played it for a week. You know what I mean? Like, and that's great. And Double Fine made Psychonauts 2, a passion project they'd wanted to make for a long time. That's great too. I just feel like the argument that like Microsoft just shudders, they're not EA. EA has been acquiring these developers for how many years? And as soon as a developer doesn't do just good enough, they will just fucking close down the studio. That is not Microsoft. I think if you're gonna get acquired by any faceless corporation, huge conglomerate, I actually think Microsoft is your best bet of a ship to get on and hop on board with. I think you're probably the safest on that ship than anywhere else that's going to end up buying you up if you're a company that is looking to be acquired for one reason or another, whatever that reason may be. Sometimes it's better than others. Just looking at what Microsoft has under their belt, it's not a matter of competing with Sony. It's a matter of what kind of breaks are we going to cut Sony? What kind of slack are we going to cut them this year? Because really, at this point, Microsoft has what else do you want? God of War just got released and ported to fucking PC on Steam. I can play that on my PC now. Like, what is Killzone hasn't released a sequel in however many fucking years. What does Sony have anymore that's exclusive, that's worth buying a PS5? The only thing that you're going to buy a PS5 for is because it arguably has... I don't even know about that.
I don't believe it does, actually. I believe
used to have better hardware.
Yeah, I believe the Series X actually outperforms the PS5.
Yeah, that's why I stopped, because I think the Series X does end up outperforming now. So what does Sony have? And I'm not bringing Nintendo
televisions. I don't know.
Spider-Man. It's
Little Big Planet, bro. They got Little Big Planet. Everything's squared away.
They have Venom with Tom Hardy.
Everything's gonna be fine, bro. Little Big Planet.
Yeah. Sackboy will go up against Marcus Phoenix and Master Chief and fucking Captain Price.
Just do what you can, I guess, bro. I hate it for you.
Nintendo is in its own world, which I think it wants. Obviously, a lot of people tend to not like super compare Nintendo to Xbox and Sony and PlayStation, because they they're just so radically different, and they kind of do that on purpose, I think, for that reason, partially, is to not be lumped in with all of that, and to be its own island, and it is in hardware and software. And I think Nintendo's doing great. I think a lot of Nintendo's business practices are super fucking annoying and shitty, and like not very consumer friendly. But I think its hardware is amazing, and I think a lot of its proprietary software is amazing. More power to them. That's great. My thing is, if you're a PlayStation gamer, if you're a big Sony fan, man, it is just not looking good. Like, it is just really not looking good, because Call of Duty, every year, right? Or every few years, there'd be a contract signed. Who gets COD this year? Who gets the exclusives? Who's gonna be the favored platform? Is it PlayStation?
And
Is it Xbox?
PlayStation. It's been PlayStation since Black Ops 3, I think.
Right. And that means they're gonna get early release dates for DLC. They might get exclusive content here and there. They're gonna be playing on PlayStations in the Pro circuit, which means more sales for that console. You know, people are gonna have that console. If they are taking the game seriously, or if they're a content creator, you know, whatever it may be, or if they're just a huge fan of the franchise, right? Because they want the exclusive shit first, they want it early, blah, whatever. Are we gonna see that anymore? Is Microsoft gonna be so rude? Is it even rude though, or is it just like, I don't even know, the victory lap of it all, to be like, hey Sony, how much do you want to pay us to get your exclusives now? Like, you're literally, Sony is going to be competing with its own sole competitor, and they have to pay them now to get the exclusives. So they just lose either way, right? They just lose because they're paying their competitor for exclusivity just to fund their shit, or they lose exclusivity and they lose again. So like, it's just a lose-lose situation now for Sony to get COD.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that pretty much sums up the situation. But I mean, you adapt and overcome, or you lose, right? So either like Microsoft is just gonna run the game, or companies like Sony are gonna have to figure out a way to overcome that situation. I don't think that that's very likely, but I hope that it would at least drive Sony to be creative and to accomplish something great, because I don't see a bright future ahead of them in the video game market with this acquisition.
Right. Like, they need to get... It's so funny because Phil Spencer... It's such a fascinating thing going on, right? Because I've heard a lot from Phil Spencer and from the Xbox camp. He's had a very express vision of the future of gaming, right? And it's not a lot of exclusives, actually. It's actually like...
And it can't be, because of cross-platform coming.
Right.
Like we discussed this on like over a year ago now, about how
Right.
cross-platform in gaming is a standard. It's no longer a cool, neat niche feature that you really hope your game has. It's, I mean, cross-platform is the new standard that dedicated servers were 10 years ago. It's something that got introduced, and then within a couple of years, if your game doesn't have this, then you're behind and you lose.
Right. Exactly. And it's going in a direction where it's like, I mean, it's coming true. Like, they're really gonna, if they wanted to, they really could make Microsoft could make the gaming landscape into whatever it wants it to be, because it owns almost every flagship developer there is in the industry. Most of the major players are now under that flag. So if they want no exclusives, they can control that. If they want exclusives and they really want to be mean, they can do that too. You know what I mean? And it's really in their court, but I think everything that we know up until this point about their philosophy points more towards, I think they will be more generous gods in the gaming landscape than to make everything exclusive for Microsoft products and fuck over, Sony super hard and let, other people not have any fun. I think that no matter how you slice it, Microsoft is winning. It's just a matter of how are they going to do it, how benevolent are they going to be in that position that they're in now. And Sony, it is the only thing they have to do in their power now is to create new IP that is super amazing, that is going to draw people in, that is exclusive to PlayStation, right? Because unfortunately, this very acquisition will cause a necessity for more exclusives from Microsoft's competitors, which until Microsoft can completely form a monopoly and buy everything in the gaming landscape, it can't account for the fact that its competitors are going to have to make exclusives to compete. So in a way, them doing this is forcing the hand of Sony to have to create more exclusives and keep it locked to Sony products, because it's the only way anyone, like, they're going to justify purchasing their console. Because right now, like, the incentives for purchasing anything but Microsoft products is very low. You know what I mean? Because it's just irrefutably a better deal. Game Pass is amazing. I'm sorry.
Right, and that's one of the main things. That's one of the biggest deals, right? Is that with the acquisition of all these games owned by Activision, are we going to see these games come to Game Pass, right? Because, like you said, Overwatch, Call of Duty, I don't know how they would do that with StarCraft. I'm not too familiar with how that works with games that are only on PC, but
yeah,
I don't know if like
Game Pass
PC exclusive games would.
Game Pass
right, but
PC.
isn't the games on Game Pass only games that are shared between both PC and console? Not necessarily cross-platform, but that can be played on both.
That's an interesting
I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not
question.
very familiar
I'm not sure.
with the Game Pass. I have it, but I don't pay for it.
Yeah, I just
but
do
Microsoft actually gave me a code for 6 months of free Game Pass.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm trying that out now. But I mean, yeah, you've got all those games, and I don't know if you mentioned Destiny as well, also owned by Activision. Isn't that right?
No, Destiny just left Activision recently.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
they did.
Very
Bungie
recently.
secured their independence, like very, very recently. So they are free. They were almost in Microsoft's grip
again, dude.
Wow, that's incredible. Actually, that is
irony. That would have been the irony.
I mean,
there's just not. It's like, unless you're completely independent, which Bungie is now. Unless you're completely independent, I think Epic Games, I think Bungie, I think, there's such a small handful of developers that manage to stay independent at this point. Is Sony going to try to look to entice them, or are they going to focus on just building new and better IP, which in the day and age that we're in the industry, it seems more and more unlikely that anyone is going to come up with good ideas that are original anymore. So I find it a tall order that Sony will be able to come up with that many new ideas that will be exclusives, that will be enticing enough to justify picking up a PlayStation. I think this is just, it's wild. But like I said, I think it's going to cause a little more competition. I think it's going to cause, we'll actually see more exclusives possibly than before because of this now, because like I said, it's the only option if you are competing with Microsoft. And who knows, we might see Microsoft improve things at Activision Blizzard. We might see World of Warcraft get better. We might see Call of Duty become better managed. We might see a better sequel in the COD franchise this year. We might see Overwatch improve. Like, there's so many wins that Xbox could pick up here. There's so many easy layups Microsoft and Xbox could make with this acquisition, because at the end of the day, Blizzard and Activision have a lot of IP, and even though they may not be the top dogs right now in those franchises, they are, at the end of the day, amazing franchises nonetheless, right? And there's so much left on the table with those franchises like Overwatch and World of Warcraft. Like, the bones are amazing still, and all they have to do is just put it all together, improve the management, improve the talent that's there, light a fire under everybody again, get rid of all this shitty company culture that's undoubtedly had an adverse effect on productivity and the projects getting made at these companies, and just get back to making good stuff again, like we know these companies are capable of. That would just be amazing. And we got a new Elder Scrolls game on the horizon. Doom with id Software is like back in the conversation, again. Fallout 76 is bad, we're gonna just ignore that entirely. Minecraft just had a huge update that's bringing people back to that game. 343 just launched Halo Infinite, which, God, it has a lot of problems, but fucking the fact that that game even got made and came out by this point is a fucking miracle.
No, I agree. I can't even. It's kind of a situation where it's like, can you think of another company that would have picked them up? I mean, EA can't afford that.
No.
you have you talk about Activision, right? Like, all you have is Microsoft. Who else is gonna get them? At this point, it's just like, dude, you have Microsoft, and then you have everyone else.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. Everyone else is off in their own. Do you think that this is verging on monopoly? I mean, at what point are we saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been like an oligopoly at least. I mean, it's always been a few absolute titans. Even before this happened, I mean, what are the giant gaming, publishers you could think of? I'm sure it's Activision, EA, and Microsoft, right? Like, you still would have probably only thought of 3 off the top of your head, maybe 4. I mean, it's just one less, and it just so happens that I think it's the 2 biggest ones that just merged. It's obviously not a merger; it's an acquisition, but they've now, those 2 companies and all of their IPs are now one. So
right,
it's definitely moving that direction. But I mean, I don't expect there to be a sudden increase in price or anything like that, or a drop in quality of the games Microsoft is producing. Entertainment is a pretty elastic service, you know what I mean? Like, people will, if there's somewhere that people can better spend their money to be entertained, they will. So, Microsoft is going to face the challenge of continuing to have their studios create good games and produce, media that can entertain their consumer base. And so, no, I mean, I think that it's definitely still an oligopoly. I mean, they gained some power, but in the end, I don't think it's going to have a big impact on the consumer, right? And that's kind of what my concern would be if I were to have one about this acquisition.
I think if you're a Sony consumer, it will for sure impact you.
Right, you're gonna have to switch to Xbox or PC, man.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
that sucks.
Especially if you're a Call of Duty fan. Man, like, I don't see Sony getting favored anytime soon in just reality, and especially not on the pro circuit. You're not going to be seeing anyone playing on a PlayStation on the main stage. That's for sure not happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, Call of Duty, and I mean, the Warzone and particularly the competitive scene on what is now Vanguard and last year with Cold War has pretty much moved to PC anyway.
Right.
Microsoft product.
Right.
And that's what I'm most interested to see, right? Is that crossplay between Xbox and PC that you might be seeing PlayStation get left out of on many occasions with games like Halo, for example, and future iterations of other Microsoft games. And the concern is that what is defined or what is considered a Microsoft game just grew massively in scale.
Right.
So that's what I'm most interested to see is what kind of crossplay is brought to so many of these IPs that we've been enjoying playing for a very long time that were owned by Activision and that are now owned by Microsoft, the company that has both PC and Xbox.
Right. Yeah,
it has kind of standardized crossplay between those 2 systems all the way back to about 2017. That's become that's become something that I think that they've benchmarked around that time, and it's something that they've continued to integrate and conceptualize in the
Right.
following years. So
Yeah, I think the gaming experience as a whole through Microsoft's products is becoming a lot more and more homogenous in a way that is pro-consumer. Um, and I think ultimately it's a subjective argument that can be made both ways, but to me
Mhm.
it feels like it's pretty pro-consumer. The consumer is able to have cross-play, blur that line between console and PC gaming, pay for a game just one time and be able to play it on both platforms seamlessly. That's sick. That's awesome. Like I said, Game Pass, extremely pro-consumer service, amazing thing. Um, you know, and now the fact that Microsoft has all these amazing franchises, I think of it, the worst case scenario, right, is probably that things just don't get that much better at Activision and Blizzard, which means that all their franchises don't get that much better, right? But best case scenario is that Microsoft goes and they fix the issues going on over there, and then all those flagship franchises get a facelift, get sequels, get new additions, get better talent behind them, get more resources behind them even, and they become better. And that's great for the consumer. You know what I mean? At the end of the day. So I think this is exciting because it could be the catalyst that makes Activision Blizzard get back on the right track, because I think that across the board, every single IP they have was on the decline and not getting the tender love and care it needed in order to be super successful. Like the fact that Diablo 2 Remastered came out and not a single person has talked about it is crazy, because it was an amazing game at the time. It had an amazing cult following, and it just doesn't have steam. You know what I mean? No pun intended, but it just doesn't have the steam that it should have. And it's the same for really most of those other franchises. So I think it could end up being extremely pro consumer if they manage to get that right. And at that point, like, yeah, I'm excited. More power to them, because it can't get much worse, right? Like, can it get worse than Vanguard? Because no one's playing that anyway, right? So what's worse than that? Like, what you know what I mean? Like, what are you gonna do worse than that? Like, that's yeah, it's the same with World of Warcraft. Like, a lot of people are just not playing it. Overwatch, not a lot of people playing it. So, I mean, fucking, the bar is pretty low at the moment over there.
I agree.
You know, we're not on Wall Street and we're not necessarily analysts in this sector of things, you know, so definitely take take
Right,
it
and I would
take it
never
with a
ever.
grain of salt, you know, coming from us, but you know, that's just our 2 cents.
Yeah, and I would never ever imply that uh, a gaming or tech company is doing something that benefits the consumer solely for the benefit of the consumer.
Definitely.
But you know, if it inadvertently makes life better for us gamers, then you know, just gotta take it.
Actionably, go get a PC, start PC gaming, or get an Xbox, especially if you're a Call of Duty fan. That's gonna be the move for you.
Yeah, you know, I mean, what you want to play on obviously depends on your level of devotion to gaming. I think
Sure,
um,
sure,
it's
sure.
gonna do wonders for I think the sale of the Xbox too,
Definitely, yeah, definitely,
and Game Pass.
yeah, absolutely.
But it's good. I think overall it's gonna result in a healthier population of gamers.
Yeah, yeah, I hope it doesn't go the other way, but like I said, I don't really see it goes the other way, because I think I, I think overall across the board, um, it has been pretty decent in terms of outcome and the final products that have come out of the studios that Microsoft's acquired over the years, with some exception. But I think those are exceptions, not the rules, like Rare and stuff like that. So
Dude, everyone on PC and Xbox is like looking at the PlayStation players right now, like one of us, one
Yeah,
of us,
pretty
one
much.
of us.
Pretty much.
Come over to the dark side.
But yeah, game bad.
Game awful.
If you liked the video, make sure you subscribe because we're coming out with videos every week or more, and we work really hard on this stuff, and we really appreciate all the support, all the comments. Big shout out to everybody who is always active and engaged. Love talking to you. Love hearing your thoughts and opinions and your insight. Really helps us get a better picture of what's going on about the things we're talking about, in terms of what people are actually experiencing and how they feel about it, and that's all greatly appreciated. So keep that up and subscribe if you want to see more. Like the video if you enjoyed it. If you dislike it, we won't know, so it doesn't matter. And and yeah, if and if you want to spread the word, share the video, all that to your friends, and appreciate that too. Thanks for supporting us, and we'll see you on the next one. Can you imagine making a video unironically?
Mm-mm.